Hamilton Bay, a novel based in the area of Kingston, Ontario in the late 1800s. This story was inspired from the desire to see Canada return to its simple roots after seeing such division during the pandemic in recent years. Available now on Amazon, this book will help fund our efforts here at Momentum Canada, since we are not government funded. Rather than just ask for money, I wanted to give you something wholesome for you to enjoy as well. So place your order today and enjoy a great story for such a time as this. All right, how's it going, everybody? Brandon McCaskill here with Momentum Canada. Welcome to Momentum Monday. If you're new here, I encourage you to subscribe. We go live every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We just talk all things politics, from local to provincial to federal and even international. Some of the stuff that goes on in other countries, we like to pay attention to that as well. Today on the schedule, we're going to be talking about the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, as well as we're going to talk about the Emergencies at Commission, and we're going to be talking about the Asbury, Kentucky event that's been going on, and it's pretty extraordinary. I'm kind of excited to talk about that. But first, like I said, if you're new, please subscribe. Please thumbs up this video because it helps the algorithms out, and leave me a comment down below. We love having conversation on these streams because this is more about you guys than about me. I like to hear what you guys have to say, and you guys kind of drive the show in a lot of ways. So please leave me a comment. Let me know where you're listening from, just to say hi. You can even just do that. But before I dive into the first part of the stream today, which I want to get into the train derailment, a few days ago, I interviewed Mike Mole. He's a constant supporter of the channel. He's often in the chats, and I interviewed him and gave him an opportunity to tell his story of how he was affected during the pandemic. So we rewound to 2020, and I asked him what went on in his life, what's his story. So I gave him opportunity, and that video is available over on Rumble. You can check that out at Momentum Canada. And if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description. It should be in the description right now. So make sure you check that out. And if you're not subscribed over at Rumble, there's going to be episodes like that coming out more frequently, as well as the live streams that get a little bit more sensitive to the YouTube standards. We're going to be jumping off YouTube, not today, by the way, but in those instances, you're going to want to be subscribed over there to catch the shows. All right, so let's dive right in. So, yeah, a lot of you have probably already heard the train derailment that happened over a week ago now. I can't remember how many days it's been, but it's kind of hit the controversy. It's become a controversy, and it's due to be. I can't speak this morning. Sorry, guys. The controversy, I think, comes from just our distrust in the powers that be. And I talked about this last stream, how I always try to be careful of not being too conspiratorial, where you're just like, you don't trust anybody. And I'm not saying just go trust everybody, but you got to have a fair balance of common sense and going where the evidence leads. So there is both sides to this that I'm going to try to touch on. People that are saying this is nefarious, this is intentional, and there's others that are just saying this was an accident and that they're doing everything that they can. So right now I have Judy. She says, "Hi, first time here. Benny Johnson paid 20 families $1,000 each for relief, which is far more than the government or rail has. The chems are now up here in southern Ontario, Canada, as far as Montreal as well." Yes. Now, yeah, I'm going to show you positionally because, yeah, I've been watching this pretty closely as well. Look, obviously, because I'm in this area. So let me share with you. I have a lot of tabs open, so you guys are going to have to bear with me as I try to find it. There it is. Man, I'm getting quick at this. So here's the map. This is East Palestine. Down here, it's like right on the border between is that Pennsylvania? Yeah, Pennsylvania and Ohio. So East Palestine. I did a little measurement there. I'm about 173 miles from there. So I'm up in Sarnia, Ontario. I guess that's not too accurate. I should get right in Sarnia there. It should adjust it a little bit. Yeah, 174 miles and 281 kilometers. So, yeah, that's how far I am from. I've been watching the wind patterns, just the weather network, see kind of where the wind's been going. It's different every day, but I mean, on these lakes, I mean, I live here, so I get all the wind off this lake, and so you got Lake Erie here. Especially when a current is flowing a different way, the winds are going every which way, so it's really hard to predict. I saw some people online, they did a measurement. They had their ways of figuring this out, and they gave a 200-mile radius, so their line extended to like way up here. So I was in the range. So they drew a giant circle, and they said, everybody in that circle move, or never eat the vegetation from the ground again, or the animals that were raised there. But that's just not accurate, because it's not going to be a complete circle. You're not taking into account the wind currents. You're not taking into account a lot of things. And I don't think there's a lot of definite answers right now, to be honest with you. What I highly recommend, and this is what I've called on, well, not directly, through Serious for Sarnia. Brooke Day is a part of our channel. And he's the local guy, and he's been pushing our counselors to, be vigilant, even if there's not much you can do, if this is a provincial thing for them to really monitor, but they can be voices for you guys in your own cities. Just email your city councilors, because they're more likely to respond to you rather than your provincial parliament or your federal parliament. I mean, do everything, but just make sure these people are on the ball, and just that's just what I encourage you to do, because if they're not paying attention, like, that's toxic stuff. So that's what we'll get into. Let me close that. Let me share. So let me share with you the concerns, because obviously the people that are living here, they're scared. They're scared, and they were told by the authorities to go back into their houses after the fire was put out. And I personally think that's crazy. I'm going to show you a video a couple of videos as to why I think that's crazy. But let me read your guys' comments first. I don't want to rush through this stream. I want to talk with you guys. Darcy says, good morning, Brandon. Good morning, Darcy. Great to have you. Awesome. Right on. Vikram's here. Good morning, everyone. I will be trying to listen in. Awesome. All right, so let me share this with you. This is on Twitter, so I have a few Twitter things open, so I'm just sorting through them here. Not that one, not that one. Yeah, this is the one. All right, so this is just a East Palestine resident. The title of it says, the people of East Palestine are being told their bedding, clothing, furniture have been permeated with these chemicals and need to be thrown out. They are being told to stay out of their basements, and the local hospitals are overwhelmed with body rashes and other side effects. So I'll play this, and can you guys give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear this?
Hey everybody, another update on the East Palestine, Ohio train crash and what my extended family is saying to us about it. They have been told that everything in their homes that is permeable, so their furniture, their bedding, their clothing, anything that's wood, cement, needs to be thrown out, because these chemicals have permeated through them, and they're forever chemicals, so they're never going to go away. They're being told to throw out most of the things in their home, and that simultaneously it's somehow safe to still live there. I'm not buying it, and neither are they. They were also told that the gas that is formed from vinyl chloride forms mustard gas and is going to settle in their basements, and that they shouldn't be going in their basements right now because it could be dangerous. But you can live in your house, it's fine. There's just mustard gas in it. It's totally fine. They were initially offered $5 a person for the entire town, but now they're offering them $1,000, which still doesn't cover the cost of rehoming yourself after all of this, the cost of getting hotels, the cost of trying to clean up everything, the cost of your health, the cost of the trauma this caused. the ongoing trauma this has caused until these people are financially compensated and given new homes, basically. They need to be rehomed. One of the most disturbing things is that they've told us they have body rashes. They've gone to the hospital and the doctors pretty much say, we don't know what we can do for you. We don't know how to treat this. We don't even know really what it's caused from. We don't know how to decipher how to go from here. The doctors are overwhelmed. It seems like the entire medical system everywhere around there is overwhelmed because of this. Who knows what all of these chemicals created when they combined in the air, in the atmosphere, in the water, in the soil. These chemicals have been confirmed to now be in the Ohio River, and I can tell you how that happened. Not to mention that these chemicals just were spewing into the air and into the clouds, the atmosphere above, obviously that part. But when the fire departments first came on the scene, they were dousing the flames of the train cars with massive amounts of water, which got into the streets and got into the sewer system, the water system, which inevitably ended up in the river. So all of the chemical runoff from the fire departments trying to put out the fire is in the water table now. I just think it's painfully obvious that they are downplaying the severity of all of this because they don't want to take financial responsibility for the permanent mess that they've caused for these people. They need to be honest. They need to be transparent about the short and long-term impacts of this train crash and what potentially this mixture of chemicals could do to everybody.
Wow. Yeah, so like this is vinyl chloride that they're talking about. This this fume, and my experience with this specific chemical is when I used to work for a basement repair company. We used to patch people's basements that were flooding and all kinds of things. So we got into drainage and we'd end up using PVC pipe. And PVC, that's what this stuff is it's for. And because we'd have to cut these little pieces of PVC to kind of put the elbows and the 45-degree angles, 90 degrees for eavesdrop or underground, what they called bubbler pot drainage systems. And so I, as a young rookie learning this stuff, I'd be sitting there with or not a hacksaw. What do you call it? Yeah, a hacksaw, cutting it, getting through it. And my boss would run over to me and be like, "Brandon, where's your mask? Like, where's your mask? You can't cut that stuff without, having a mask on." And we'd have the N95. And I never understood. I was just like, "Oh, annoying boss. Leave me alone. I'm a man." But that's what he was referring to, like how this stuff could knock you on your butt if you breathe this stuff in. One WW guy says, "Another attack in the war that is being waged against us all." Sorry, Vikram, I meant to read yours. There is definitely something fishy going on. Yeah, and the fish are dying too. The fish, and I'm going to show you a video soon. People are saying like the worms in the creeks are dying, and it's a bad situation, guys. She looks too perfect. Steve, okay, thank you. That was the thumbs up yeah, because I was having problems last stream with my audio, so I'm just making sure. I didn't want to get too ahead of myself with that audio. She doesn't look real to me. She kind of looked like I don't know, like a Barbie doll, like a plastic. Someone made of plastic. Maybe that's too mean. Mary L says, "I would really like to hear from the local nurses and doctors. I hope they speak up." Yeah, anyone local. And so, yeah, I'll bring up the next video because this is a local senator in Ohio. I think it's the senator of Ohio. So let me bring his video up. Now he's after political points here, obviously, but.
Hey guys, so I'm here at Leslie Run, and there are dead worms and dead fish all throughout this water. So, something I just discovered is that if you scrape the creek bed, it's like chemical is coming out of the ground. Can you come here? And let me just show this to people. I don't know if you're going to see this on the camera, but watch this. Just see that chemical pop out of the creek. This is disgusting. And the fact that we have not cleaned up the train crash, the fact that these chemicals are still seeping in the ground is an insult to the people who live in East Palestine. Do not forget these people. We've got to keep applying pressure. That's how we're going to fix this problem. Thank you. Hey guys, so I'm here at Leslie Run.
Yeah. All right. Here's another video. This one's sideways, whoever was recording it.
Like, what is in the water?
At night, leave the sunshine. I don't know where. I'm looking for some fruit and time.
Pretty gross. Pretty gross. Yeah, so I mean, Twitter's an endless source for looking that stuff up. But yeah, there's just one more video I want to share with you. True plastic. Yeah, Darcy, I agree. Right on. Yeah. Awesome. All right, I need to find the video though. I might have closed it. If I closed it, then I won't worry about it, but good day. Okay. I guess I'll just bring this up because this is the screenshot I shared a few days ago because it surfaced on Twitter, and it's not by. I mean, that's the thing, that it's not a professional. These are just general researchers like you and me that are sharing stuff that they find, and so keep that in mind. I don't think it's someone like an authority, but they're called UAE Exotic Falconry and Finance. We provide a large capital commercial entities, sovereign funds, and falcon owners with falcon and falcon-related derivative financial products. All right, so they came up with this map, and their title was Dioxins. Don't eat anything that grows here. Don't drink the water. Don't burn any wood or vegetative matter. Don't eat any animals that were fed from or watered here. Don't live downstream from here. Don't take soil from here. The land is wasted forever once we do this to it. So this is the map they've come up with. Now, I don't know where this comes from, so NOAA, high split model, particle cross sections. Jeez Louise. Yeah, so yeah, that's that. It looks like it reached, well, that's way into Quebec, so obviously way over Ottawa. Let me just search that real quick. What does NOAA stand for? National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Okay, so that sounds pretty reliable then, if that's the affected area. Gee. Yeah, lots to come out, I think, still. And that's why I was so adamant about Brooke pushing our local leaders. We have a position in the city where, like, we have a media outlet. We use Sirius for Sarnia. Everybody watches us, and so he's got a voice in the city. He wasn't elected, but he's got a voice. So that's why I was pushing him to do that, because, like I said, even if a city council member can't directly do something, they can be a cheerleader. They can call the right person, push the right buttons. People should be monitoring this. And I guess the fortunate thing for me living in Sarnia, we're very well known for our pollutants. Like, we have the chemical valley. At one point in history, we were like the number one place to develop cancer. Like, that's what Sarnia is known for. So their chemical valley, and it's definitely increased, like the environmental standards have definitely increased over the decades. And so we do have things in place that do monitor stuff like this. Maybe not all chemicals, but I know, and my dad said this to me because he was a plant worker. He was a millwright for many years. And he said, yeah, this vinyl chloride, that's what our chemical valley deals with. So I'd imagine they have some sort of monitoring system that can detect that. And I think that's a good idea for everybody to pay attention to, because if this map is accurate, that's pretty concerning for me. All right, so I wanted to I want to show you the concern side of it, which is, to me, very, very obvious, and seems to have a lot of unanswered questions from officials and from the experts, if we want to call them that. But let's flip over. I found this chemist online, and his YouTube channel is called That Chemist. So let me share that. I'll bring it on screen, and then I'll read your guys' comments to get caught up. Yeah, this is it. All right, let me read your comments real fast. The lack of action and concern by all governments, U.S. and Canadian, around this massive chemical attack on the heartland of North America is more proof of the depth of corruption in all governments. Yep, I tend to agree with that. Steve Forney, the governments and big corporations, since COVID seems like you can't hold them accountable for anything anymore. The whole situation shows more proof of the conspiring to completely dismantle all of our infrastructure in order to gain more and more control daily. This is a war, and it's time we started fighting back. They want us to lose trust in all levels and get angry. Gates has huge shares in the railways. They should all be wearing a high-grade chemical masks. I noticed that too, Donna. Some standing there without. That's true. That's true. That senator, like, I wouldn't be doing that. I saw a meme. It was like things to do in Ohio, and the number one thing was leave. I thought that was, it's like morbidly funny, but it's true. All right, so let's watch this video. We're right here. This is from That Chemist. So this is a perspective of saying, guys, let's calm down. It's not really that bad. And let me know what you guys think.
February 3rd, 2023, a train operated by Norfolk Southern was derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, causing concern about the chemicals that may have been involved in the accident. In this video, we will be discussing the chemicals involved in the derailment, the impact on the community, and the ongoing response efforts. The initial cause of the derailment appears to have been a broken axle, with footage showing sparking up to 20 miles prior to the accident.
Yeah, so I saw this early on, and this is a security camera catching the train going by, and there's sparks going on. So he's saying it's a broken axle. But, and you can actually read comments in this video, beneath this video, people are saying, yeah, this railroad company, apparently, I don't know anything about the railroad, by the way, but there's things in place that that alert the railroad stations, or, when things happen like that, they're supposed to be alerted. So there's the question is, like, why weren't they alerted? If this is 20 miles before the derailment, why wasn't this brought to anyone's attention? And this guy seems to skip over that question. He's just saying, oh, it's just an axle breaking and it's sparking.
Accident. Several train cars were affected, with some containing flammable chemicals that ignited and caused a fire that burned until February 5th. The fire included pellets of polymers such as polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride, as well as chemicals including butyl acrylate and ethyl hexyl acrylate, which are both toxic to fish. On February 6th, vinyl chloride was released through pressure release devices and burned in a controlled manner. Vinyl chloride is a known carcinogen and can lead to the formation of chlorinated dioxins and PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, when combusted. Tank cars containing ethylene glycol, monobutyl ether, and propylene glycol were breached, and 2 tanks of petroleum lube oil were also affected. It's also worth noting that 2 hoppers of polyvinyl were involved in the fire. Polyvinyl is just short for polyvinyl chloride, and when this is combusted, it can also lead to the formation of chlorinated dioxins. Emergency responders were initially uncertain about the hazardous materials on board, and people within a 1 mile.
I want to rewind that just for a bit. Something he said there.
Polyvinyl is just short for polyvinyl chloride, and 2 hoppers of polyvinyl were involved in the fire. Polyvinyl were breached, and 2 tanks of petroleum lube oil were also affected. It's also worth noting that 2 hoppers of polyvinyl were involved in the fire.
Okay, so polyvinyl. Remember that polyvinyl, because there is a difference between polyvinyl and just vinyl fluoride, and I don't hear him making the distinction between them.
Polyvinyl is just short for polyvinyl chloride, and when this is combusted, it can also lead to the formation of chlorinated dioxins. Emergency responders were initially uncertain about the hazardous materials on board, and people within a 1 mile radius were ordered to evacuate. The immediate impact on the local community is still being assessed, and the long-term impact remains unknown. The ongoing response efforts are being managed by the Environmental Protection Agency, which is working to test for harmful chemicals and prevent further damage. It is important to have clear guidelines and information available in case of emergencies like this, and it is crucial to show the public the choices being made and why they are being made. This is a complex issue that requires expertise in several domains, and ongoing efforts are required to minimize the impact of the derailment on the community and neighboring cities. As a chemist, I believe that testing for harmful chemicals and preventing similar accidents from happening again should be the priority in the aftermath of the East Palestine train derailment. It's also essential to understand the potential risks of the chemicals involved and take appropriate measures to minimize their impact on human health and the environment. Here you can see a manifest of all of the train cars that were involved in the derailment. There were other cars, presumably in this line, that aren't listed here. Here you can see the commodity that was present on the cars, as well as some relevant information. Now, whether or not certain things were breached is listed here. This is where I got my information from. So here you can see there's 4 different tanks of vinyl chloride. These were not burned in the initial train accident. These were manually burned after a few days due to concerns of a potential explosion from building pressure. There are some other chemicals here where fire damage had occurred to the exterior of the train cars, but if no breach has occurred, then none of the chemicals actually leaked. Propylene glycol isn't a chemical that you should be too concerned about. This is something that most organisms can easily break down, as this just gets converted into pyruvate. This doesn't have significant toxicity on the environment. Now, that being said, each of these train cars has somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 35,000 gallons, and that's still a lot. Now, even if this went into like a waterway, waterways tend to have a lot of flux, and so this might get diluted really quickly, even if it did spill into the environment. Now, that being said, any of the chemicals that have spilled are trying to be contained at the moment. There's active work from both Norfolk Southern and the EPA in cleaning up this mess. And as far as I can tell, everybody's doing everything right, at least to the extent that they can. You might have some expectation that they can suddenly, out of nowhere, test for every chemical everywhere, but that's pretty challenging to do. And from what I've seen, they're doing everything the right way. So hopefully this video reassures you and you're not too worried that some nefarious stuff is happening. It's very unfortunate that the train derailment happened when it did. Sometimes trains do derail, but efforts are in place to lessen the likelihood that that happens, especially when the train is carrying lots of dangerous goods. There's usually detectors roughly every 30 miles or so to catch stuff like this, and so it was just a very unfortunate series of events. Now, while you might just blame the railway for all of this, the government's also allowing these chemicals to be transported, so this doesn't 100% fall on the railway either. They're being allowed to transport dangerous goods. And while you might hope that people had more preventative measures ahead of time, a common thing that happens in most jobs is that rules are put into place after someone dies or gets injured. At this point, nobody's died as a consequence of the train derailment, except for lots and lots of fish, which is terrible. And there is definitely an environmental impact as a result of this disaster. But now we have attention on the problem, so hopefully the government and the railways will do something about it to prevent stuff like this from happening again. Now, if there was any groundwater contamination, essentially, as long as there's some wells available to form a cone of depression, they should be able to remove any of the affected groundwater relatively easily. So a spill into the environment doesn't mean that it gets spread completely everywhere. Obviously, if it falls into a stream, you can see the chemicals getting spread a little bit further. But in terms of groundwater contamination, there's techniques that'll be used which are commonplace for the remediation of groundwater. In addition, the chemicals that were spilled don't pose a huge significant threat to people. The toxicity of propylene glycol is very low. The toxicity of ethyl hexylacrylate and butyl acrylate are relatively low for people. They're also biodegradable in the air. They just take a while. Now, that being said, there was initially a risk when the vinyl chloride was being released that hydrochloric acid and potentially phosgene, as well as some like soot, could be affecting people. But the evacuation was already in place when the controlled burn was happening. So nobody should have been in the affected zone, and the air should be entirely fine to breathe now. Yes, there might still be slightly higher than usual fine organic particulate. It isn't some massive cause for concern. So burning the vinyl chloride was actually the right move as far as I can tell, since the combustion is pretty complete. And the hydrochloric acid will just go into the environment and react with minerals and then no longer be a problem. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it has provided useful information on the chemicals.
All right, so that guy's optimistic. Nothing to worry about, nothing to see here, guys. So, and I found his videos yesterday, but I've also been following this other guy who's the opposite, saying there's concern here, guys. He's a chemist as well. Now, his videos aren't as articulately done, but I'll share that. If I can locate it. There we go. So this is Nick Drom. He's not as popular on YouTube. He's only got 332 subscribers. The other guy had over 100,000, but he's a chemist as well. And this was actually played on Joe Rogan. So let's watch him.
It hasn't been getting a lot of coverage, and the coverage that it has been getting hasn't been very good. So let's talk about the trail derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. East Palestine's about an hour north of Pittsburgh, almost halfway to Cleveland. Norfolk Southern has a rail line that goes right through town, and this derailment happened right on the edge outside of town on the border of PA and Ohio. Of the cars that crashed, 5 of them contained vinyl chloride. It's a monomer used to make PVC. The reporting on this has gotten vinyl chloride confused with polyvinyl chloride, the polymer made out of vinyl chloride. Now, the reason that this distinction is really important is vinyl chloride is very hazardous and very flammable. Polyvinyl chloride is a plastics that's used in like everything. The other thing about vinyl chloride is that it boils at 8 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's shipped in its liquid form, meaning that when these trains crashed and these started leaking, they weren't just leaking liquid, but they were spewing boiling gas. So vinyl chloride is really toxic. OSHA has the permissible limit of how much you can be exposed to it during an 8-hour shift as a 1 ppm part per million, average over 8 hours. So prior to this, the biggest spill of this chemical was in New Jersey, where one train car and about 23,000 gallons of vinyl chloride were spilled, but it didn't catch on fire. Now, this crash in Ohio has 5 train cars. These kinds of tanker cars can carry between 25 and 33,000 gallons. Let's call it 250 to 250,000 pounds of vinyl chloride. That's per train car, 5 train cars. There's maybe 1 million pounds of this toxic chemical spilling into the ground and also.
So he made this guesstimation before the report came out. I can share that with you, but I'll just tell you, they narrowed it down to 1.4 million. So he was like, he under guesstimated, but he was right around being correct.
Boiling off into the air. But then it caught on fire. I think this is where the reporting is really bad because no one is mentioning what the byproduct of vinyl chloride burning is.
Yeah.
Of the many byproducts of burning vinyl chloride, one of them is hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen chloride is really unstable and latches onto water, like just water vapor in the atmosphere, and that turns into hydrochloric acid. So right now, government officials from the railroad, both the governor of Pennsylvania and Ohio are calling burning off the 1 million pounds of this stuff a success, but not mentioning that it means that we have hundreds of thousands of pounds of acid in the air, potentially. Now, ever since engineering school, I've studied a lot of industrial accidents. I just find it really fascinating, and organizations like the Chemical Safety Board, NTSB, and OSHA all have like really good reports available to the public. I think as a designer, it's really good to learn about mistakes. When looking at these kinds of industrial disasters across time, there are a couple things that are pretty universal across all of them. One, the responsible party, in this case, Norfolk Southern Railway, always plays down the reality of the situation. Politicians also just repeat the same lines, and then news outlets just repeat the same. So all we're hearing is the responsible party's word.
Yeah, so he's got a few videos.
For 5 minutes.
Encourage you to check those out. Let me get to your guys' comments here. They created mustard gas and used it on citizens of North America. The burning after the fact created even more toxicity that will affect everything for at minimum decades. Yeah, that's what this guy's saying. Essentially created acid rain. Darcy Martin says, an emergency car and empty car should be with all transports. Yep. That guy sounds paid, but have him live there for a month. Norfolk's has had many train derailments in the past year. Maybe they should look at upgrading their equipment and maintenance schedules. Yep. Agreed. Nobody has died yet. What is going to happen to these people going forward? Yeah, that's what my thought was when YouTuber said that. Are they looking at cancer development? What is the effects of reproduction? Are they testing for benzene? Yeah. Yeah, I saw another post. Someone said, yeah, the same government that told you to mask up for the last 2 years is now telling you it's safe to go home. Now that the most poisonous chemical has been spewed into the air and permeating your furniture in your house, it's safe. You mean paid by the government? Yeah. This will be used as an excuse for the jab injuries. That's a good point. That's a good point. Acid rain on steroids. Yeah, well, you know what? The good news is, let me find it. Boom. Pete Buttigieg promises to investigate Ohio railway chemical spill for signs of racism. This is satire. I thought that was funny. Babylonian Bee. No, but the silence from especially these people that have been shoving environmental, fear mongering down our throats for the past forever. Where are they? Where's Greta Thunberger? What's her name? Thunberg. Where's Bill Gates? Where are these people? They're being awful quiet. All right. So I think let me double check here. I think I covered everything I wanted to for that. I'm just going to continue keeping my eye on that stuff, especially locally. Kind of being in the crosshairs of that is a little concerning. Lorax says this will cause climate change requiring strict lockdowns around the world. FYMM lockdown, not complying with any BS, rather die standing on my feet. What good news. The cloud of poison will eventually get to the parliament in Ottawa. Yeah, I was playing with you. I heard BG was vacationing in Ohio last week. Who's BG? Bill Gates? Oh, yeah, Bill Gates. Who's the other guy? Big sensationalist he had that movie about the climate, the world falling apart. Al Gore. I haven't heard anything from him either. Right on. So let's pivot here. Glad I covered that. And it's great to have you guys throw your 2 cents in here. Yeah. It's hard to come to any conclusive statements either because there's just no information out there. It's people like me, people like those YouTubers that are chemists. So those are the people that I tend to listen to both sides of. I think I agree with, I can't remember who said it, that the one YouTuber is being a little too trusting of the government, a little naive. I tend to agree with that. I think there needs to be more questioning. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah. BG, big guy, Biden. I think they meant Bill Gates. But yeah, let's pivot over to the Public Order Emergency Commission. So a lot of you have already heard that the Emergencies Act Commission, the result was that it was appropriate for the Liberal government to evoke the Emergencies Act. Now, I took down a video because, and I say this a lot, I try not to sound too conclusive about some of the opinions that I put forward. And so I put forward an opinion that I couldn't prove. So for that reason, I took it down. And the thing that I said was that I have this feeling that same last name of the commissioner, Paul Rouleau, and Trudeau's aunt, Suzette Rouleau, married into the Rouleau family. I had a suspicion that they were connected. And that's the controversy right now. I don't even believe, because I'm going to read a tweet here that basically puts this to bed, to say that they're not related. But for some reason, there's just a part of me that doesn't believe it, and that's okay. But for now, I'm going to just kind of focus on other things surrounding this guy. And because it wasn't just the fact that he was in my mind, potentially related to him, but it was to the fact that he was a known liberal activist. And this whole thing was set up as liberals investigating liberals. So let me share with you. This is a tweet by Glenn McGregor. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he works for CTV National News journalist in the Parliamentary Press Gallery. So let's take this with a grain of salt. Well, I'm going to read to you his findings. And conveniently, this came out February 18th. So he's coming out assuring all these conspiracy theorists that no, they're not related. And so let's read this. So Glenn, he says also, I have to scroll up. 1 second. Sorry. This is the first one. Apparently, this needs to be said. Public Order Emergency Commissioner Paul Rouleau is not the brother-in-law of Pierre Trudeau's late older sister, Suzette. She was married to Pierre Rouleau, a Montreal dentist. Also, Paul Rouleau is not the son of Paul C. Rouleau, a late federal court judge. POC Paul's father was an Ottawa doctor who died when Paul, was 19. POEC's Paul Rouleau did work briefly for then Liberal Prime Minister John Turner. Now that is a fact. I know that. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Everyone who worked for him did so briefly. Ahem. Then he went on to a law career and was eventually elevated to the bench. There is a Paul Rouleau who has donated money to the Liberal Party of Canada and a Liberal Riding Association in Niagara, but there's no evidence this donor, who lives in Port Colborne, Ontario, is the POEC commissioner. Oh my goodness, I keep hitting it. Don't want to do that. There we go. The most recent of those donations are from December 2022, when Rouleau was writing his report. So it's either a huge lapse of judgment or not the same Paul Rouleau. And the donor from Port Colborne lives in a postal code with modest homes. That doesn't seem like a place a judge on the Ontario Court of Appeal would reside, but maybe. Also, the originating source of this appears to be a tweet from December that mistakenly claims POEC's Paul Rouleau is the son of Ubald Rouleau, who was Reeve of Cornwall, Ontario. I should have noted above, Pierre Rouleau, husband of Suzette Rouleau, had a sister and only one brother named Francis. That is, he didn't have a brother named Paul. And for further clarity, POC's commissioner, Paul Rouleau, is the son of Dr. Roger Rouleau, late of Ottawa. His siblings are Jean, Guy, and Suzanne. His early days in Veneer City, as it was then called, and worked with PM John Turner are discussed in the TFO story. All right. So that's that. That's the most in-depth dive I've seen into that. So I don't know how much of that is true, but I know that the fact that he was working with John Turner, I know that's true, but yeah, I don't. Yeah. So I'm going to close that and bring up one more thing here. Excuse me. This is on Reddit. So this was actually 4 months ago. So this is probably when it all started, or like as it was firing up for the commission. So this is Reddit. Who edited the wiki page for Justice Paul Rouleau, removing details of his involvement in the Liberal government of PM John Turner? Something curious happened 2 days ago. Let me zoom in. You guys are probably squinting. The Wikipedia entry for Justice Rouleau, who is currently sitting as the Commissioner of the Public Order Emergency Commission, was edited to remove validly cited references to the high-level participation of Mr. Rouleau in the Liberal government of John Turner. The mandate of the commission can be read here. While we don't know who made that edit or why, there are some concerning rules that suggest this should be investigated further. Given that we are in the middle of a major commission of inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act, if these edits were done by someone directly involved with the operation of the commission, that would be troubling and warrant further public discussion. Let's take a closer look and stick with the facts that are known. The Wikipedia entry. The section that was removed from the Wikipedia entry previously read, Paul Rillau worked for the Liberal Party of Canada in the past. In 1983, he was part of John Turner's leadership campaign to take over when Pierre Trudeau announced his retirement. Rillau then had a hand in helping pick Turner's cabinet once he won leadership and is described as either his executive assistant, appointments secretary in various media reports from that era. So they have all the documentation for this, showing that he was deeply involved with the Liberal Party. Because that tweet from Greg, he made it sound like there was a lot of people that went in and out of John Turner's peripheral for, I forget how he worded it. It seemed like he was saying like people were in and out, like they got fired quickly or whatever. But that doesn't seem to be the case according to this research here. So, yeah, for me, there's a lot. I see a lot being swept under the rug. So I'll leave it there. But I did want to remove that video because when I listened to it back, I'm like, I'm making too conclusive of a statement. I don't want to be accused of spreading misinformation. I rather leave open-ended questions, letting you guys tell me what you think rather than making a conclusive statement myself. All right, so let's read your guys' comments. Let's get caught up here. I got to go up farther. There we go. No conclusion is the point, Brandon. Confusion is their weapon. That's what we're dealing with. And then when someone like me goes out there and says something for sure, when they've scrubbed everything, guys, it's so easy to scrub information. I've done it. I've had to do it. Like last winter when the Emergencies Act was evoked and they were going after YouTubers. They didn't go after me directly. They went after Mr. Sunshine Baby. And Mr. Sunshine Baby DM'd me on Instagram. He said, buddy, I just got contacted by the government. Maybe it's time to think about deleting your content. He's like, if you don't want to have your bank accounts seized and stuff like that. So I spent that night deleting everything that you could ever find about me, like connecting me to the convoy. So it's not hard. It's not hard to scrub the internet. And when I said that to someone the other day, I said, someone who just is a moron, but I said, it's very easily that they could have scrubbed the internet. And they said, yeah, that sounds conspiratorial, as if it was impossible. No, Google's not this mystic magic ball, crystal ball. It's pretty easy to do. Franklin the Turtle says, the food supply chain anywhere this cloud goes is now poisoned. This will move farmers away from using the land for decades. I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised. Probably be no issues of any kind near Gates farmland or Ted Turner's. Yeah, that'd be an interesting path to follow. Go see what kind of land that Bill Gates owns. And is that the area that was affected? Might be something to look into. Because would he poison his own land? I bet Rillau will get a Senate seat. Yeah, well, guys, the thing, and I said this in the video that I deleted. I think I did. Yeah, the video that I deleted, I said this. The concern at the very beginning, because like if you think of any scandal that Trudeau's been confronted about and like the opposition party has gone after him for, he was always stiff-arming them, like not giving them the transparency or cooperation that was needed to have a fair investigation into certain things. He would do that. He would stiff-arm them. But then all of a sudden, it came the Emergency Commission, and he made statements that I'm going to be fully cooperative after he selected this Paul Rillau and fully transparent, and just he had that smirk on his face too the entire time, like he knew the result. So that's what didn't sit well with me at the beginning. The Edmonton Sun had pointed that out. That's what got my attention at the beginning. But yeah, it was more than the fact of him possibly being related, which I wouldn't be surprised if we ever got to the truth that was the case. But for now, I'll let that part go. Why did it pass? Because of the incompetence of Canadian governments at all levels. I'm trying to remember, what did I talk about? Something passing. Sorry, I'm behind in comments. When I get too far behind, I lose context of what I was talking about. Just a process to get the changes made that the WEF CCP needs by 2023. Let's hope not. I hope not. See, I hope that it's an accident. I hope that there's nothing nefarious to this. I want to believe that sometimes, I mean, you can look at some of the statistics with railroads, derailments that happen in the States. It's like 1,000 derailments that happen every year. Someone shared that statistic with me last stream. So those things happen. But does that mean that this isn't nefarious? I don't know. Is there just more attention because of the toxins that are being released, and the dangers surrounding it? Possibly. I mean, we could be wrong, but there's still lots of questions that we want answered. So until those questions are answered, I think it's healthy to be skeptical, not in fear, but a neutral position of just wanting your questions answered. Darcy Martin says, I personally don't care about these details. Point is, he did his job for JT, and it's obvious. That's how I feel. Liberals investigating liberals. That's how it goes for them. Glenn McGregor is not a nice man. Well, CTV doesn't surprise me. I didn't know too much about him until I found that tweet. So do share what you know about that man. To do just like Obama's history made up. Yeah. And we're to trust Glenn. No, I was just showing you their side of the argument. I always like to do that, show our concerns and what their response is back to us. I like to keep it fair and not create a straw man on their side. Like I like to accurately represent their position. I think that's important. LOL, yeah. Regardless his family tree stuff, he was still handpicked, and throughout watching the hearing, I found him to be biased, especially to the freedom lawyers. It's true. They kicked out Brendan Miller for getting, I forget what even happened. You guys remember what happened? Like Brendan got frustrated and he ended up kicking him out. Like, just let him cool off and let him come back in, but he's kind of pivotal for the freedom folks. Can we not just send someone to ask him or the family and find out? Would be interesting to see his reaction. I'm sure someone has his phone number and tape it. Yeah, that'd be interesting. But yeah, in my, I didn't research very long, but I was trying to find out information on his like current family, like the latest of his family status, but it's hard to find. It just tells him, it just tells you information about his position and what he does for our government. Like, it doesn't get into family stuff, but yeah, that'd be interesting. Like a Project Veritas for Canada. That'd be kind of cool. Don't get sidetracked on trivial matters. The point is, he made the wrong call in letting Trudeau off the hook on the EA. Yeah, I just felt that was needed to address, because I see it everywhere. People, even in the comments of, I made a post because I don't know how you guys been enjoying the Dear videos. Dear Justin Trudeau, Dear Pierre Poilievre. I did a post for Paul Rillau, Dear, but almost every comment was in relation to how he's related. So I don't want to include that in my Dear video if it's not true, right? So I thought it was important enough to bring up because it's on everybody's mind. But yeah, that's why I brought it up. True Terry. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to get too focused on that. That's why I'm kind of pushing it to the side for now. Vikram Singh says, but it might help us understand why. Motivation. Yeah. The why motivation is government control regarding EA. Yeah, and once I get caught up here, I'm going to play a video from the responses from 3 people. I want to play you Keith Wilson, Pierre Poilievre had a statement, and then Maxime Bernier. So I'm going to share those with you. Justin Trudeau will be sure to have it ready for the next medical emergency aimed at the kids prior to the next vote. Shall see. Oh, my mouse is dying on me. Rouleau doesn't need a Senate seat. He's much better off as a judge. Well, how old is he now? Mid-60s, almost 70s? He's getting up there. I can see him retiring soon. Yeah, Rouleau, enjoy the report. Same as the barrels of poison they are putting in the rivers of in New Brunswick. Indeed, Donna. Yes. ACC to Children's Health Offense train derailments number over 1,700 per year. Not sure if that is North America or worldwide. Yeah, it's almost 2,000. Yeah, well, the statistic, because I forget who I was talking to, but then they double checked it and they said, yeah, it's because I at first I thought it was 1,000 per month, and I was like, whoa, per month? And then they double checked. They're like, no, it's per year. I said, oh, okay. So that could be North America. Wouldn't be surprised. Fred Johnson, because of all the redactions and late disclosed documents, Miller got frustrated, and it was too much for Rouleau, I believe, is why he. Okay, so he got frustrated over the redactions. That seems like a pretty justified reason to get upset. I don't know about you guys. Was there ever justification for that? The redactions? I don't know, to be honest, because I got sick of watching it, just knowing how the result was going to be. Vikram Singh says, I did not care for their corruption before. Now that it is affecting all Canadians, we need to stand up and do something before things get worse. We need to clean up this country top down. The narcissistic smirk of Trudeau before the commission questioning. Why did JT get a pass on the War Act? The investigation showed a complete incompetence of government at all levels, from the local to federal, local to Fed. Fill up the prisons with a corrupt and power misusing power. Miller was tossed out because, redactions. People are just looking to vent their frustration over his decision, so they fixate on some conspiracy theory to explain it. Yeah, well, I don't know about it being conspiracy. I think if anybody's saying that it's true, that it's actually a fact, like, I don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I still have this feeling that it's like, I don't know, could be, wouldn't be surprised. That's where I'm at. Wouldn't be surprised. All right, so earpiece in their ears. For Miller, it seemed to be all the red tape. Agreed. Yeah, the redactions, all the red tape. All right, so let me share with you. I'm going to start with Keith Wilson's reaction. I thought it was really great. He's such a good guy. I hope I meet him one day. Hopefully I have him on the show. He'd be a great guy, great guest. So this is his reaction to the report.
And as you said to me earlier, you are there with some of the protesters, among them Tamara Leach. I'm wondering what the reaction is from you and from the people you represent.
Well, I was in another meeting when the report initially came out, so they had a chance to digest it. And then when I came into the hotel room that I'm in right now, the leaders were all around, and there was this tremendous, painful look of sorrow and loss on their face, very similar to what we experience when we have a loss of a loved one. And what they explained to me is that they feel this is a dark day for our country. It's a dark day because we've always been proud of our respect for rights and freedoms, for human rights, for dialogue, political dissent. And this decision from Mr. Rouleau says that the threshold is of what occurred in Ottawa is enough to bring in the Emergencies Act and take rights from people to freeze bank accounts, personal business bank accounts. So they're quite concerned that we've taken a turn to more of an authoritarian country as opposed to the true north, strong and free.
I want to break that up a little bit and begin with the fact that, when you go through this report, Justice Rouleau does say that there were many peaceful protesters a part of the movement. In fact, he says that all governments should have done a better job of acknowledging that the majority of people were just exercising their fundamental and democratic rights, and should have been more clear, drawing a line of distinction between peaceful protesters and those who are not. Is that not at least encouraging to you?
Well, yes, but it still signals that, in the past, remember, we've only used this type of power where we suspend civil liberties, where we allow the government to seize property, in this case, bank accounts and other things, without the due process of law, when we've been in an acute existential situation like World War I, World War II, and the FLQ crisis. So we've completely established a new bar. And not only a new bar, but new powers, because back then, we didn't have digital banking and everybody had cash and so on. So, no, it doesn't give comfort. I think there's international implications to this. I think this decision today, respectfully, tarnishes Canada's image as a country that in the past has been this hallmark, this fresh air of freedom and respect for individuals and diversity of views and dialogue. So I take no comfort in any aspect of the report, to be candid with you.
Justice Rouleau also makes a distinction between peaceful protesters and what he says was happening on Parliament Hill. Again, acknowledging that many people had come out to be peaceful, but there were other elements amongst the protesters. And he basically says that he doesn't accept the fact that the whole protest was a peaceful action.
Well, then he's redefining the English language, because what we know is the crime statistics were down. We know that there was no bombings, there was no fires, there was no windows broken. There was an absence of criminality. There was an absence of violence. That was the sworn testimony from the OPP, from the RCMP, from the Ottawa City Police, from CSIS, and so on. So, see, that's what's concerning here, is that we're using new terms to define violence. It wasn't actual violence; it was felt or perceived violence. So, I'm not suggesting, nor any of my clients, that it would have been unreasonable for the government to take steps. And I was always baffled why they didn't use some of their existing powers early. I was always baffled as to why no one applied for an injunction to have them leave. We had an injunction against horns, and we had an injunction against something else, but nobody ever applied, no government authority ever applied for an injunction to have them leave. I was always baffled by that, and I testified to that during the inquiry. So I think it comes back to the high-level point that we can get into the minutiae on these various points, but at the end of the day, the nature of civil disobedience that we saw has now been deemed to be sufficient to trigger these powers that have only been triggered in the past in World War existential situations of national security. And I think it's a chilling effect. It fundamentally changes the ability of not just this government, of any other government. That's what I think we've got to be careful about. We're all on teams, right? You're either conservative or liberal or left or right. Any government can use these powers now in a way that was not constrained prior to today.
2020 hindsight, I'm wondering, Mr. Wilson, would you have advised for things being done differently than they were from the protesters?
No, I've reflected on that many times. As you can imagine, there was a very challenging environment. There was a lot of people with different views. My job, among other things, was to try and achieve Tamara's wishes, which was to always keep the protest peaceful, always keep it as respectful as possible, to make sure there was no violence, no vandalism, those sorts of things. There was no burning of churches or buildings or anything like that. It was these people had the right to have representation as they exercised their charter right of protests and lawful assembly. At no time, each of the police officials that we walked through, and I think it was even Lamenti as well, were any of the legal triggers met to declare this an unlawful assembly, even though everybody uses this phrase unlawful assembly. and they all agreed they weren't. They didn't meet the requirements. The Riot Act wasn't read under the criminal code. I could go on. So all in all, I think what should have happened was someone in the federal government should have said, hey, let's sit down and talk to these people. Let's hear them out. They didn't have to agree with the protesters, but the Canadian way to do things is have a civil discourse, see where we can agree, to on a way of the dialogue to move forward.
I want to pause it there because this making me think of the United States inspiration from Ottawa. You know, they started their own convoy. Whatever happened to that? I didn't really follow it closely, but what I did follow was that they did have a meeting with elected officials, and just the mere fact that they got that attention and they did have their voices heard, they went back home. I mean, Senator Ted Cruz jumped in one of the trucks and was protesting with the protesters to let them know that their voices were being heard. That's all the truckers wanted. And this is what Keith Wilson is saying. There was no attempt. Like, just how different would have things gone if they just sat down? Trudeau has it in his head that, and he said this during the commission, that they didn't want to just be heard. They wanted to be obeyed. You should have tried hearing. You should have tried hearing, and, you know, if they still didn't leave, things, I think, would have went a lot different, in my opinion.
Forward to resolve grievances. And now, you know, as a government, you don't have to work that hard anymore. You can ignore those who disagree with you. And if they get too boisterous and they start protesting, well, now you can seize their bank accounts and freeze their business accounts as well. And I think that's what's so dangerous about what happened today.
So how do you answer then? In the Rouleau report, the justice pointing out to the fact that he didn't think there would have been opportunity to negotiate with anyone because the protest itself was so decentralized.
Well, I mean, I've addressed this many times, including in my testimony. The proof is in the pudding. And what I mean by that is Tamara Leach and the board and the other road captains had negotiated over a number of days, and I was involved in that with the mayor, and leading into the weekend before the invocation. And on the Monday morning, the same day, the same afternoon, February 14th, that the Emergencies Act was invoked, they had shown their ability to clear out a number of city blocks. Over 100 protest vehicles moved, 23 up to Wellington, the rest out to the base camps, and some of them people went home. So I think they demonstrated their ability to have moral suasion and get the cooperation of the protesters. The only reason that was stopped was because the police put a stop to it, and that was the testimony under oath at the inquiry. So I think, and you know, and it worked. The civil discussion worked at Windsor. It worked at Coutts. That's why those borders were opened over the weekend. But there was this absolute adamance on part of the federal government to have no dialogue whatsoever, even though they had my cell number. Even though they knew they could reach out to the mayor, they had my email address, they had Tamara's email address, they had her phone number. So it's disappointing. I hope that, you know, we've got it. Canadians need to decide whether they think this was a good thing, and they need to voice their views to their elected officials, and political parties need to decide what their position is. Because if enough Canadians say, no, I don't think this is right, what's happened here, and it's not a reflective of my Canadian values, then a future government can amend the Emergencies Act to put in truly stringent thresholds so that it can't be used to simply quell protests and lawful dissent.
Keith Wilson, thank you for the time today.
Right on. Yeah, I thought that was well said. Well said. Yeah, so that was his reaction. I have Pierre Poilievre's, he had a statement I wanted to play. But before I get to that, I want you guys to answer me this, because it's going to be relevant and what I want to talk about next. For those of you who went to Ottawa or just was super hyper-focused to what was going on, what was the overall feeling that people experienced when they went there. So let me know what you guys, just shout out some words, whatever it is, whether it was love or whatever. Let me know what you think. Let's hit the next video here, and then we'll talk about it.
After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, cost of housing has doubled. Cost of mortgage payments, rent, and home prices have doubled, which means 9 out of 10 young people who don't own a home believe they never will. Think what that does to someone's psychology. You're 30 years old, you're in your parents' basement, you can't start a family, you can't save for your future, you can't build credit or collateral. And worse, based on today's high interest rates and rising costs, you calculate that you never will. So you lose hope. Worse, many homeowners are losing their houses because interest rates are going up after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, despite the fact that his government said they would stay low for long. So those people lose their homes, end on the street, and addicted to drugs. And after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, 30,000 people have died of drug overdoses. Crime rages as more and more violent acts go unpunished, with a 32% increase in violent crime after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. Meanwhile, 1 in 4 Canadians skip meals, and 1 in 2 cut back on groceries, hungry and miserable.
I thought I had it saved at the right point. I don't know where he starts to talk about the Emergencies Commission.
Medical assistance in the dying and distract. And I'm quoting, stop dividing Canadians, buying tone, a risk. And thus, a lot of people were so helpless and so desperate, they ended up participating in a protest in Ottawa. This was an emergency that Justin Trudeau created by attacking his own population, by driving up their cost of living, by making it impossible for people to pay their bills and live their lives in peace. He caused the emergency that unfolded. And then when he caused it, he piled on, he poured more gasoline on the fire with nasty insults, jabbing his finger in the faces of his own citizens, something that even today's report acknowledged contributed to the length and the intensity of the protest. Everything feels broken in Canada, but we can fix it. As Prime Minister, I'll bring people together. I'll listen to their concerns and understand the suffering.
All right, so that's the little portion I wanted to show you. And then I'll just finish this off with, it was an email that I received from Maxime Bernier. And then Justin Trudeau had a response, but I don't care to share that. Brandon, today, Justice Paul Rouleau released his verdict on Trudeau's use of the Emergencies Act to violently crush the Freedom Convoy 1 year ago. Rouleau concluded that Trudeau's use of the act was justified. In a delirious statement, he claims that it was reasonable to believe that this peaceful and joyful protest posed a threat to the security of Canada. I have to say I am profoundly disappointed, but not surprised. Justice Rouleau was handpicked by Trudeau to oversee the inquiry. We can't forget that Rouleau has a history as a Liberal activist and worked with former Prime Minister John Turner. The commission was not independent, as it should have been. It was Liberals investigating Liberals. Is anyone really surprised that Liberals protect their own? At the end of the day, the findings of Rouleau really don't matter. We all know that Trudeau would not have resigned even if the commission had found he overstepped his powers. We all know that Jagmeet Singh would not have held Trudeau accountable by withdrawing his support and forcing an election. No matter the findings of this illegitimate inquiry, Trudeau's actions of 1 year ago exposed him as the tyrant he is. He crushed peaceful protesters with police horses. He threw people in jail on false charges. He froze people's bank accounts without due process. The Freedom Convoy forced Trudeau to show his true colors. And it exposed the opposition, the NDP, Conservatives, and Bloc as incompetent and incapable of holding the government to account. Brandon, we must replace these corrupt politicians with People's Party MPs willing to govern in the best interest of all Canadians. So that's Maxime Bernier. Okay. So let me catch up with you guys here. I sent a message to our local MP Liberal, one to vote for a motion of no confidence in the PM and his government. No response from his office. Not surprised. It was the greatest peaceful protest. Okay, so yeah, Steve's given me some words. I asked you guys, what are some descriptive words of what people experienced in Ottawa? He's saying peaceful protest of all Canadians from all different backgrounds and nationalities. So that tells me like there's a sense of unity, right? There was a sense of peace, unity. I use the word love. In my professional opinion, things have gone too far. JT is doubling down all in, and the rest of us are left powerless. Unite and start pushing back like the protesters. Yes, the world knows the EA was wrong. All right, so yes, so this is what I kind of want to end with. This is not happening in Canada. This is happening in the U.S., Asbury, Kentucky. I don't know if you guys have been watching, but it is starting to flood my news feed about and some people are calling it a revival. Some people are calling it an outpouring, an awakening. You guys recognize some of these words? And this is why I had you kind of just throw these words out for me. Because the people that have been going to this, it's happening at a university campus in Asbury, Kentucky. Let me show you just some pictures. So there it is. Thousands of people are showing up to this thing from all over the country, all over the world. People are flying in because they're hearing what's going on. It started with just a group of university students that were singing and they were worshiping and praising God in their Christian university. And some of the students and the faculty started to notice that these kids, they're not leaving. Why are they continuing to pray and continuing to sing and just be so entrenched with whatever presence that they're experiencing there? And so people started coming and more people started coming. And soon, right now, currently, actually, as of late last night, I was watching a report from someone that traveled to see what was going on. They said people are just hungry for they're describing it as hungry for the power of God, hunger for the presence of God. But when they go there, they're reporting on the feeling of unity, the feeling of love, the feeling of just, it seems like people are just so exasperated with everything that's going on in the world. And they're coming together in this one spot. And this report I watched last night, it was a 4-hour wait to get inside this building just to be able to do what they're doing. They're singing hymns. They're singing, praise and worship songs. They're reading Bible verses. There's, people just kind of getting things off their chest, and they're there to love on one another. And it's just hard not to watch what's going on because, I mean, this is I'm aligning it to what happened in Ottawa. This desire that people have to just want to be a part of something that is of this nature. So I thought that was pretty cool. If you guys haven't been paying attention, I encourage you to do so. I actually follow this university's page, Asbury University, as of this morning, or I think it was last night, maybe. The president, so this guy here, actually, this is the video right here where he announces that it's become so overwhelming that this little town of Asbury, they can't their infrastructure can't handle it, so they have to relocate. So they're going to hold their last service, I think, Wednesday. They're going to relocate where they can actually handle people. Because if you see that church there, there's a balcony, so they have to be careful of how many people are in the balcony. It's an old building. So, and there's police outside making sure traffic's good. But my understanding is Asbury is like one road town where there's not a lot of like hotels and restaurants. Like all these people, like even if you had to use the bathroom, like there's like I wouldn't want to be sitting in a 4-hour lineup just to use the bathroom. But so yeah, I wanted to share that with you because I think there's an awakening happening. People are hungry for good, and I find that inspiring. I find that very inspiring. Um, Lord Fibonacci, I used to be a patriot when I thought I had constitutional rights. Now I am against the federal government and prefer BRICS nations. I have friends that speak that same language that say exactly that. Lorik says, prayer is what we need the most right now, and the globalists will absolutely hate this. And yeah, that's what I'm actually curious about. Like, because Ottawa was a political protest and our authorities snuffed it out. But this and what it's because you guys have probably heard your whole life like revival happening in local churches, and it's usually these events that is just a bunch of excited people that they're just going to get a crowd together, and it usually lasts about a week, and then they cut it off. But something like this, where it's thousands of people coming in and out and having to leave so that the next person can go. What's going to stop this? Are the authorities going to step in somehow? Or because like what they're claiming is that nobody's organizing this. It started with students, and that's what they're actually prioritizing young people. There's a different lineup. So the long line is 25 and older because they're trying to inspire young people to keep this going because they started it and they're like, we want to encourage our youth and young people to have a taste of this, which I think is really, really cool to have our young people, the next generation, exposed to that and experience that. Prayer is what we need the most right now. I already read that. Yes, absolutely. It's going to start happening other places. I certainly hope so. And that's what I was talking to my parents about it last night. I said, well, I always saw the trucker convoy. It was like these giant trucks pushing, like breaking through the gates of hell. And it woke up everybody. And it seemed to start these little fires all over the country. People wanting to replicate exactly what happened in Ottawa. But it ignited these little flames all over the country. So what I'm hoping is that this little seed or this little flame that started in Asbury, Kentucky, that these people that go there and experience will take it home and start their own little fires, good fires, not bad fires. In tears for their prayer or for their prey. The country is in the most dangerous situation at Biden's bloody hands. Post the link, Brandon. The link for what? If you're looking for this stuff, go to Facebook. That's where it's mostly posted. At Asbury University's page, they post all their stuff. That's where you can find it. Religion is good. Any religions is better than liberalism or globalism. It's true. It's very true. It's unifying. It's unifying. And that's what I like about this, because there's no specific denomination in charge. Like, because within Christianity, you got your Baptists, you got your you got your Catholics, you got your Presbyterian, Pentecostal, but nobody is claiming that they're running it. It's just like this self-perpetuating, self-governing thing and all they're really doing is making sure the building's not collapsing. Like that's the extent of their control. So, and that's kind of how it was with Ottawa. But it seems when there's less hands on it, and to me, I am a Christian, and what I hope is that they leave it like that. To me, I see it as it's in God's hands. They're allowing God to do whatever he wants with it. And that's what I thought was beautiful about what was experienced in Ottawa, that there were Christians down there. There were people down there praying, that there were people there. They didn't even have to be Christians, but they were showing immense love for one another. Like I'm getting choked up talking about this because just the memory of grown men wrapping their arms around other men and just bawling their eyes out. There's like this release. And so I see that happen. There's a definite comparison here, I feel. One's political and one seems to be spiritual. And so I'm going to just kind of keep my eyes on how that develops. I hope they don't get snuffed out either by religion. I don't want religion to come in and try to control it, right? I just want it to be organic. And I certainly hope the authorities don't try to snuff it out. So we got the results about the inquiry. Not good, but let's encourage and help each other. Remember, a single act of kindness does more than good than a whole parliament who just talk. We have hope. Thank God. That's right. That's right. John 15:19. If ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen ye out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. That's right. The fires you're referring to starting are the same flames that were seen when the Holy Spirit was given as a gift after Christ's ascension. See, that type of stuff gives me hope. I don't know where everybody is spiritually, but seeing stuff like this, seeing people hungry for something other than this crap that we're dealing with. It's not like they're ignoring what's going on, but they're seeking something greater that can do something about this. Because right now we're up against the wall. It's like a Red Sea moment. You know the story of Moses when they're being chased by Pharaoh's army and they come to the Red Sea and there's nowhere else for them to go. But Moses takes his staff in faith. God parts the waters. And it's that moment where we're at, I feel right now. There's people crying out. They're desperate. They're hungry for something outside to do something about that. So I wanted to end with that because it was kind of a heavy stream talking about the Train Derailment Emergencies Act Commission, all pretty devastating and hard to, it's stressful stuff. So I wanted to end on that. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I'm going to close on that, but I'll just say all my usual stuff. Please subscribe. It really helps us out to get the word out about grassroots movements like this, what we're trying to do on the channel, trying to be a hub for information rather than relying on government-funded CBC, CTV type networks. We think people that use their voices like me, like Mr. Sunshine Baby, Clyde Do Something. There's so many good people out there. Do your best to support them. If you can't support us financially, that's totally fine. But there is a way to do that. It's in the description. I have my link. But just subscribing, just liking, just sharing, that type of stuff helps so much. You have no idea. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. And I'm glad to see that there's so many God-fearing people. Like you guys are all saying God is in control. That encourages my heart. It does. Steve's, thank you. Appreciate you. Had a telecall off to go back to see. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Darcy. God is in control. That's right, Mike. Spoiler alert, he wins in the end. And yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brando, for all your help. Have a great week. Thank you all. We are proof people can sit down and talk. That's right. Thank you for this dialogue and keep us, that can keep us united. Love you and everyone. God bless us, everyone. Right on. Thank you, guys. Let's start this week off on a positive note that God's in control. And I hope you stay well. I'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now. God bless.